Hi everyone, welcome to Wine and, the podcast where we talk wine and everything that goes with it. Today, we're talking with one of my very, very good friends. So it's wine and more wine, I guess?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is the lovely Ariana Tsuchiya from G.Lion Hawaii Restaurant Group. So High Steakhouse, Levi and Kiora, some of my favorite restaurants.
Thank you for having me. Can't go wrong with more wine, right?
Wine and wine.
So we have a wine expert and a wine expert, and we're here to just soak it all in and drink it.
They're not gonna talk the whole episode, they said.
Nope.
But they're gonna drink the whole episode, so that works.
I hope so. Cool, so I poured this, but Ariana actually brought this.
So Chris does not know what this wine is in the glass.
I guess we're doing a blind
You are.
tasting
We're just
thing. Cool.
You can tell me if you like it or not.
Okay.
How about that?
Yeah.
That's the most important thing. That's what it all comes down to.
It is, right? I mean, so what is the importance of blind tasting?
So for me, it's kind of a party trick when you're just like, oh, I'm a somm, I can blind this wine. But when you're actually using it on the restaurant floor, I use it to connect with guests. So what types of grapes do you actually like? And when you get rid of the label and the producer and what's in the magazines and what's hot and new and all those fads, you really come down to what is the grape and where is it grown and why do you pair it with food? And I think that's what actually helps to connect with guests and share stories with one another. So that's for me the real intent of blind tasting.
She's gonna take my job.
Wow.
She's amazing.
Okay, so the first thing, maybe you can help walk me through because on first smell, I have zero idea what this wine is. I'm gonna be very
Well, let's start with color
honest.
because it is the actual really beautiful color here. I don't know if you can see in the screen, but for me, it's a really beautiful inky, dark ruby red with high concentration.
I see. So color is super important, not necessarily for like wine or, I mean, the quality of wine, right? That's a misnomer. Like the darker it is, the better it is. But for blind tasting purposes, to identify a grape, that makes a lot of sense.
For me, it's just, first of all, it's beautiful, but also it helps me kind of decide, okay, is this a thick skin grape or a thin skin grape? And that can get kind of confusing for some people. But basically what we're gonna decide here is, hey, does this have a lot of saturation? Does it stain the glass? And then that way it'll help me decide what varietals it could possibly be. Something like a Pinot Noir is actually a little bit thinner skinned as a grape. So it's gonna be a lighter style of wine versus something like a Cabernet Sauvignon is a thicker skinned grape. It's gonna have a higher concentration and a little bit more staining in the glass.
And I'm just gonna go ahead and guess that that's not what's in the glass right now. Those two are not.
I don't know, I could be helping you out, man.
Yeah. But so this has a lot of color. This is sexy, it's inky, it's sultry. I would say that it's a thick skin varietal, right? So
Absolutely.
Which is so cool because when you're deciding for red wines, when you're blind tasting, thick skin versus thin skin varietals, that essentially divides the world in half. Like half of the classic red grapes are thin skin and pretty much half of the classic red grapes are thick skin.
Basically, we're telling you a cheat code. So now if you ever get blind tasted out there in the world, you can just say 50-50 chance right there, thin skin or thick skin.
Okay.
Cool. So then the next step is obviously smell, right? So
Absolutely.
What do we smell? What do you smell?
There's no wrong answers here also. We
You're getting really good, you know.
We all perceive aromas and foods and everything differently, and we also have different memories attached to those feelings. So it's all about just, what do you smell? It shouldn't be intimidating at all.
Is there it's like more of like a earthy?
Absolutely.
Did I make you proud?
I'm so proud. I like chicken skin right now.
Guys, he finally loves me. It took the last episode.
You know, it took 40 episodes, but I'm sort of,
Like very earthy. There's kind of like a
Absolutely.
really strong.
This is gonna make me so proud. So if it's earthy, is it more New World or more Old World?
Old
We have to cheers to that because
my God.
some study their whole lives to get those answers right there. So
we divided the world
Absolutely.
in half, and we divided the world in half again by calling this an Old World wine because it is more earthy, right?
it's absolutely earthy. For me, although all wines have fruit aromatics, the fruit doesn't drive the bus on this wine. This is going to be more earth forward. So there's a really nice complexity here. There's earthiness. There's more of a minerality is what Somms likes to say.
I'm so proud of you two right now. I am so proud.
Can I say though, it is a little bit fruity?
Yeah. So
Okay.
what types of fruits? For me, these are more like black fruits, something like a black currant, a black cherry versus a tart red cherry. This is going to be a little bit more of a black fruit driven wine.
You know, it was so weird. When I first smelt it, I smelled like that cherry, and then I was like, wait, that can't be right. And I smelt it again, and it was more earthy.
Yeah.
So but it can be like a
It
blended.
can be a combination
Oh, okay.
for sure.
Wine is not just one thing. That's the beauty of it. Right?
Especially when you have something like a really great producer who's making really interesting wines, there's so many different layers there. Really exciting. Do you have any other non-fruit aromas, Chris, in your glass?
No, I mean, it's very floral.
Very
It's
floral.
super heady. It's high tone. It's pretty. It's
Some dried lavender for me
Yeah.
when he says floral, maybe some dried violets.
all purple flowers.
Just go out to your local florist shop on Pico or something, and you can smell all these different types of dried aromatics, fresh florals. They're all a little bit different, but I'm definitely getting dried purple flowers in this glass.
Smell that?
Yeah. All right. Well, we're gonna take a quick break. We're gonna continue. This is actually really cool. I'm so proud of us.
I'm having fun.
I'm proud of you guys
But
too.
stay
Go team.
tuned. We'll get right back.
And I'll miss the wine.
Rest easy with the new windows from Windows Hawaii, featuring Ali'i Extreme windows with their exclusive sound reduction and security package. Call 671-0808 today. 120-day peace of mind guarantee exclusively at Inspiration Interiors. Inspiration will refund you the difference if you find a lower price on identical merchandise delivered in Hawaii.
Wine Ad brought to you by Locations, whose team of trusted neighborhood experts have been helping Kama'aina to buy and sell homes since 1969. Locally owned and operated.
Welcome back to Wine and More Wine. Okay, so we distinguished the smells.
Absolutely.
What's next?
So also we have some flowers, we have those dark, almost like black huckleberry notes. I also get some black olive for me, a little bit of non-fruit aromatics like a black olive, a little bit of
Spice in there too?
spice, absolutely. May I venture to say some even bacon, some meaty qualities as well. It's not a basic wine. There's a lot going on. She has a lot to say as a wine.
She has a lot to say, for sure.
Just like you, Chris.
If Chris was a wine, here we are in this glass
This
right
is
here.
actually, Ari's dropping hints for me for sure because that's what we do. We help each other out. But these are classic markers. Like when you say black olive, when you say black pepper and floral, candied lavender and violets, it really does speak to one wine in the entire world. And this is my favorite, one of my favorite grapes.
So then we should probably just go ahead and taste it, right?
I think
That
so.
sounds like the next best thing.
Wow.
There's a lot going on, right?
Ari spent some money on me. Thank you.
How can you tell?
Well, I mean, I don't know how much it is because actually a lot of expensive wines are manipulated. Like they have a lot of new oak, which costs, it's the biggest cost in terms of paraphernalia for making wine. And I don't think this has a lot of new oak, but it tastes, quality-wise, it tastes really good. So the misnomer for quality is it's not alcohol, it's not legs or color, it really is finish. Like how long do the flavors dance on your palate? And for me, this is like a half a minute wine. I mean, the flavors don't go away. It's still there. You want to find a really bad wine or an example of non-quality wine, find a wine that you taste and immediately it drops off a cliff. This wine is like, goes forever.
For me, what I love about this wine is that although it does have, to Chris's point, a really long finish and nice complexity, this producer is just very intentional in his winemaking where he wants to showcase the vineyards and where they're from. There's a sense of place in this glass here. So for me, it's actually not just, okay, here's a big alcoholic wine and just go get your money's worth somewhere else. It's really trying to say something and speak to the importance of these family-owned vines.
Yeah.
Family.
All of that stuff. All of that
It's
stuff.
amazing, right? Like I'm listening to the way that they describe it. Like that takes years of practice as well, I'm sure,
Yeah.
right? Just to,
I actually learned a lot from Chris. So we actually met way back in the day when we both worked at Alan Wong's, where I was still like initial Grom Som, like
RIP.
way back in the day. And he was the one who was actually really hard on me and drilling me, what's the wine of Chablis, or what's the grape of Chablis, what's this. I'm like, I don't know. But eventually I studied so I can answer his questions. And it was almost like one day I'm gonna prove it to you, Chris. I'm gonna know more. And then
today comes and the answer is yes. Yeah, congratulations.
I'll never know more than him, but at least I can keep up with some blind tasting
Oh
in
my
a
God,
glass.
that's so kind. Let me go ahead and miss this wine then, and stop the love fest here, so I don't cry on camera. So it's a thick-skinned grape with all these aromas that we talked about. There can only be one grape, right? It's Syrah.
Absolutely. So this is going to be from Domaine Lionel Faury, which comes from the Northern Rhone in France. So this is going to be Syrah based. To Chris's point, he got it right. And this is specifically from Côte Rôtie, which is an appellation in the Northern Rhone.
This is a wine that I was going to bring for her if I had to blind you on red.
Really?
It's actually a sentimental wine, not to make another cry fest, but me and Chris actually did get to meet the winemaker, Lionel Faury, when we traveled to Paso Robles a couple years ago. And he's a big strapping man. He kind of looks like if Brad Pitt was like a hunter and he made wine on the side. And it's kind of this very masculine glass of red wine. And it kind of is like, you know, when dogs kind of look like their owners? This wine kind of looks like a idea of Brad Pitt.
Examples as well.
Yeah.
Oh, everybody loves dogs.
Everybody can
That's relatable.
associate dogs.
Yeah. So for me, this is a big burly Brad Pitt kind of wine, but it's got finesse. It's got some jazz there.
Now I'm ashamed of the wine I brought for Ariana.
Why?
We'll see.
Okay.
Actually,
What did
we'll see
you bring?
So
Should
now
I-
you're going to test her taste buds and she's going to kind of evaluate, right?
Yeah. And it's never a
Okay.
test, right?
It's already
Right.
coming off.
No. What, my sobriety?
No,
My grip on
the
reality?
cover thing.
So this is a white wine.
Okay.
She looks light. She looks crisp. Has a little underlayer of yellow.
Hey, you kind of nailed that, actually.
Were you just joking right now?
What? I was just going off of what it looked like.
job.
Ooh, you talk really well. Look at that.
Legitimately. Yeah.
She's coming for your job now.
She is. Everybody is.
Okay, so we're gonna
Light,
pick up this
crisp.
one. We're all gonna smell it, and then we're gonna take a break, and then we'll share with you what we think after. So don't go away.
Wine and brought to you by Locations, whose team of trusted neighborhood experts have been helping Kama'aina to buy and sell homes since 1969. Locally owned and operated. The Hawaii Symphony Orchestra returns to in-person concerts at Hawaii Theater and the Blaisdell. Visit myhso.org for tickets and information.
All right. Okay. So what are we smelling?
How about the color? You mentioned it first.
Yeah, you
Okay.
actually nailed the color.
Light, crisp.
How do you know it was light and crisp?
Well, I just went off of the color, but
Right.
then also like hearing some of the conversations we had today. Earlier we had, I forgot what.
Two Rieslings back to
Two
back.
Rieslings back to back,
okay.
and one was very like dark in color, more of a darkish yellow. The other
More of
was
like a
super light.
golden versus like a
Yes.
clear straw.
And it was
okay.
so light and refreshing. The one that was more clear and crisp, and it was like very floral and.
This is
I hope I'm
legitimately
not-
blowing my mind right now that I'm actually listened to on this podcast.
So when I
Wow.
smell this, I kind of think of like a fruity something with a tang, or am I mixing
Tang,
it up?
absolutely.
Tang, yeah.
I mean, I haven't really smelt or tasted yet, but I love that word tang. There's a zestiness here, just right off the bat, just from like smelling this wine.
So it's tart, right?
Tart, sorry.
Tart fruit, yeah. No,
Zesty is-
zest works.
Synonymous. Zesty, tart. So what does that tell you as a studied sommelier? Tart and zest.
So for me, there's different grape varietals that we spoke of, right? And some lean a little bit more acidic, some lean a little bit more jammy and overripe. So tart and zest can one be an indication of grape varietal, but it can also be an indication of something coming from the old world once again. So less fruit forward, there's a little bit more tartness in the fruit, and maybe a little bit more minerality as well.
Oh.
Wow.
What about climate? In terms of climate, if it's tart and zesty versus if it's ripe.
If you had to take a guess, right? So usually when grapes are, growing and there's a lot of sugar and a lot of ripeness, the sun is beating down on them, it's a hotter climate. So something that has a little bit more zestiness, a little bit more acidity that we spoke of, that's usually coming from a cool climate.
See, we're just checking
Wow,
off
that's how
boxes.
you narrow it
Yep.
down.
It's literally called the deductive method of tasting. We're throwing out what this wine couldn't be.
Yeah.
And all that remains. What is that Sherlock Holmes quote or something?
We don't know, Chris.
I don't. Yeah,
Deductive
I don't
reasoning
read.
or something?
Yeah.
something.
Once you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. So it's a deductive tasting method. Yeah. I'm gonna stop talking now, and I'm gonna drink.
I'm
some
gonna
more.
have to go read Sherlock Holmes when I get home. I just watched the Millie Bobby Brown one on Netflix.
That was good enough.
Did you like it?
I like that one.
did
Yeah,
too. I thought it was pretty
Girl
good.
power in that movie. But we'll go read your old man one later, Chris.
I'm just constantly berated in the show. I'm just here for a punching bag.
Hey, you brought me good wine. This is good.
It's really. I mean, it's yeah. Why don't we taste it? So what do you taste?
Yeah. But can I ask you this first?
Yeah.
So he smells it with his left nostril. Do you have a way to smell it?
Chris smells it all the way up in the glass.
He literally is like,
And he's the one that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 100 different swirls. I'm a little bit more low key on my swirling. I don't want to get carpal tunnel anytime soon. So I like to do basically just 1 or 2. For me personally, I don't want the aromatics to run out or blow off of the wine. So I kind of like to take my time with it, be a little bit more chill. I kind of like to start from farther back and then move a little bit more forward into the glass. If it's a very, very aromatic grape varietal, something like a Gewürztraminer or a Torrontés, those are very, very aromatic grapes. They're very perfumey. They smell like your grandma's lavender soap. It's like very, very pungent. So those ones, you can actually start all the way back here. For me, now that I know that it's not super, super perfumed, I can move a little bit more forward and try to deduce once again by deductive reasoning, okay, this isn't an aromatic varietal, it's maybe semi-aromatic. So I'm getting a little bit more dried white florals, maybe some dried white roses, dried baby's breath of that nature. It's not gonna be a Torrontés, it's not gonna be a Gewürztraminer.
We talk about thick skin and thin skin in red wine making, and that divides the world in half. Aromatic and semi-aromatic for white wines, that pretty much splits the world in half as well.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's just parlay tricks, right?
Yeah.
It's literally
Cheat
magic.
codes.
Yeah, cheat
Yeah.
code magic.
Huh.
So other non-fruits I'm smelling, right? It smells like the earth. It's like mineral. Right?
Absolutely.
There's
I get a little bit of a seafoam characteristic too, just a tinge of salinity. There's like this almost like oyster shell element to this wine.
what
So
does salinity mean?
like salty.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
yeah, so it's like if I was just lounging on the beach and I got a whiff of the ocean air, it kind of brings out in this glass as well.
Oyster shell. Key note for this wine.
Oyster shell.
Do you get that? You eat a lot of oysters?
You know, I do, but I'm getting more fruity.
Yeah.
Like
Get
a
anything
pear.
seafood.
A pear.
Yeah.
That's a really good
Yeah.
note because this has a lot of orchard fruit in it. So this might not be a mango or a guava or a tropical fruit, but this is more like a golden apple, and I get a little bit of a ripe pear element as well, like a European pear.
All right, well, we're gonna take a sip. When we get back, you're gonna guess.
I hope I
I was
get
gonna
it.
take a stab at it.
Yep.
I'll try.
We'll
try
see
my
in a little
best.
bit.
Cheers.
And we're back. So now we are going to get a little taste of this. And
Absolutely.
See what we think.
Well, not as good as Ariana's wine. But
It's drinking really well.
I
What
like
would you pair with this actually for food, Chris?
Oysters.
Oysters.
Oysters. I
Some
mean, it's-
seafood.
Yeah, I mean it's tastes like oysters, right? Without giving anything away, I think this is a wine that can pair with a lot of different things, right? It has a super wide window of opportunity with food at the table. We talk about acid all the time. We talked about acid when we had coffee, high acid, low acid. Wine acid is so important. It serves to highlight the dish, right? And for me, this is a wine that has a lot of acid. It makes your mouth water. It's bright. It's citrusy. Even like a salad with a simple vinaigrette.
But to her point as well, there's orchard fruit. There's like a golden apple element, a pear, and it kind of lends a slight creaminess on the palate as well. So for me, it also could maybe work with some more fatty dishes, something with like a rich creamy sauce as well. So to Chris's point, lots of different availability with food options.
There's buttery things here too, right?
Yeah.
All right, so you want to take a stab at it? So we deduced that it's light, it's crisp, it's cool climate, there's oyster shells and sea spray and
I'm going to be a
orchard
little
fruit.
overconfident in this wine because my husband would be very mad because I think this is his favorite type of white wine. I think this is a Chablis, so it's a Chardonnay coming from the northern Burgundy region of France. And it's a cool climate. Oh, and it is La Ventreux, Chablis. Yeah, my husband would probably disown me if I didn't get Chablis right.
Oh. And this is one of his favorites.
Yeah, so
Okay.
my husband just really, actually stemming back from when he also used to work with me and Chris at Alan Wong's, one of his favorite wines that Chris actually would talk to him about was Chablis. So that's another sentimental choice there.
Wow,
That is
crush it.
amazing.
This is a really hard wine to get too, because Ariana brought me Côte Rôtie, which is considered the very top of the top when you talk about Syrah. Petit Chablis is considered a country wine. It's at the
But that's my favorite style because there's no fuss. It's just, I'm here to drink wine and eat food, That's the best thing about food and wine is that there's so many different possibilities to just talk story and keep it casual. I don't think that, for me personally, wine should ever be intimidating. My personal job as a sommelier isn't to just bark orders of wine knowledge at guests, but to make them feel invited and to make them feel less scared to try interesting varietals that they've never even heard about, or maybe inspire them to travel to regions that they've never heard about as well. Go see some vineyards.
And
That's what my role
she's
is.
a superstar at it. Really, like sit at the table and have
Just
Ariana
being
do
too nice
something.
to each other. Now it's annoying.
I'm sorry, Chris. I think I'm a fan of her now. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
What you really wanted to say was, I like her more. I like her more. I get it. Believe me, I totally get it.
No, it's amazing how you all are just able to not even look at the bottle. And then I'm like, oh, she's saying exactly what's on the bottle. What?
But when you know those cheat codes that we were speaking of throughout this episode, I really feel like it demystifies the world of wine for sure. And anybody can do it. You guys got some really great descriptors out of there. So even without guessing the wine, you got the true identity of the wine and what the wine was trying to say.
You really did. It's annoying.
Cheers. We
Cheers,
did pretty good. Yes.
Good job, guys.
No.
Girl power. No kidding.
Girl power.
And Chris is #1 girl power, though. He's a real feminist.
I am.
You taught us everything we know.
Oh, don't. Yeah. Disclaimer there. Wow, that's so impressive.
Thank you for sharing with me, though. He knows I love Chablis, so it was an easy one.
But to Ari's credit, it's not about the liquid. We fuss on the show about like where it's from and who grew it, and we need to tell stories, right? We need to sell the wine. The audience can't drink the wine like we are, so we need to overly sell it. But the best wine in the world leads the conversation about everything besides itself. And I know we got a little geeky here on this episode, blind tasting and everything, but stick around for the extended version. We'll get into it. I want to know everything about Ariana, not necessarily the wine.
Absolutely. How can our audience find you or support you?
Absolutely. So I'm a sommelier for, like Chris said, G.Lion Hawaii restaurant. So I'm working the floor every night at this current moment at High's Waikiki. Steakhouse has been around for 45 years. So selling a lot of different Bordeaux's and really fun Burgundies. So come find me and we can talk story about wine. I'm also on the board for Aloha Wine Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization geared to giving scholarships, as well as Chuck Furia Uncorked, which is our new YouTube show.
Nice.
It's a really cool podcast.
Awesome. Well, we're going to get to know Ari more in the extended version. So don't forget to join us on YouTube, like, subscribe, and then also visit our Instagram at Wine and Podcast. And we'll see you there.
Cheers.
Cheers,
Thanks so
guys.
much. Chablis.
Chablis.
All right, hey guys, welcome back to the extended version, Wine and Wine. I don't know how to
With our
explain
sommeliers.
it. With our sommeliers.
With
both.
the new host of Wine and
Still the Grom.
All right, so we got into the wines, we got into a little bit of your guys' friendship, how you guys knew each other, but now let's just talk about you. You do Highs. What is the foundation that you're with again?
So I'm a board member for Aloha Wine Foundation. So it's a new nonprofit in Hawaii, and our goal is to raise money specifically to generate for scholarships, and specifically scholarships for women. So right now, I believe that me and a lovely friend of mine, Lynn Zhang, who's working on Maui, we're the only two females who are actually working the floor as sommeliers
in the state.
Wow.
Whoa.
There could be, who knows?
There could be
Right.
more, but in terms of actually like pursuing further education, so for me, I was the first female to go to the Court of Master Sommeliers Advanced course, and I don't like that. I wish I wasn't the first. I really wish that there were more women in the industry that can actually build a community. And I'm so fortunate that I have people like Chris, I have people like all my friends in the wine industry that are really supportive gentlemen. However, we need more chicks.
Amen to that.
They always say that women have better senses of smell. We have more olfactory
Listen,
glands.
I don't doubt that at all. I really don't. I'm on board. Yeah.
I don't have to go this far into my glass to smell that side.
So why is that? Like, what made you decide to get into this and, you know, be
Great
one of
question. So I actually attended the university. I'm a local girl, but I went to University of Miami for my undergrad, majoring in marketing and business, visual journalism. And I did a study abroad in Rome for one of my semesters. And that was my first real look into food and wine culture. And I say culture specifically because here in the States, we have such a to-go culture. Everything is really rushed. We're all about, as much as I love Starbucks, it's really fast-paced. In Italy, you would actually sit down, get to know someone, have a real cappuccino and sip on it and think about the flavors, or have wine with food and actually not worry about what meeting I have to go to next. So for me, Italy was really eye-opening in a sense of, hey, just take the time to get to know the people in front of you and what's in your glass and what's on your plate. It was my first time visiting vineyards as well, which is just magical for me. I love, to this day, visiting vineyards and farms. Those are my two favorite places to visit. I'm a country mouse. Chris is actually a city mouse, even though he's from Kauai.
That's fair to say. In fact, she just dropped off some persimmon from Maui.
Yeah, up in
farm.
Kula. I love just visiting farms and just seeing how agriculture grows, getting to know families that do it too, because that's the most important thing for me, is supporting these local farms, these local family farms and vineyards. So after I traveled back to the States, I was, working in business. I was doing operations management for Homestead Miami Speedway, which was basically, long story short, accounting. And it wasn't as fulfilling as I would like it to be. So I decided to venture on home to Hawaii. I told my grandpa, I want to be a sommelier. I really like wine. And he said, is that like a professional alcoholic?
And Gramps ain't lying.
Yeah, you get that a lot. He's like, I don't know what that is, but yeah, go do you. So I was like, okay, whatever. To my college degree, I'm gonna start as a bar porter, but it's a glorified barback at Alan Wong's, which is where I first met Chris, and worked as a barback, got my intro CMS exam done, and then I became the bartender and eventually the sommelier. So moving on from sommelier at Alan Wong's to becoming a manager at the Royal Hawaiian Hotel for bar and restaurants, and then just recently now at G.Lion Hawaii. So it's been a roller coaster, but a really fun one.
AKA doing it the right way, like starting from the ground up. Every single position in the restaurant, Ariana could fill.
So for me, as a manager now, what I really look for in terms of when I hire people in the restaurant is those willing to work in the trenches, because I'm not opposed to throwing out the garbage. And that's something that is really, really important to me. I don't care if we're slammed busy and I'm worried about looking nice on the floor. If the garbage needs to be taken out, I'm gonna take it out myself. And I think that's really important to look for when you're hiring employees, and especially when I look for those who I want to mentor. Right now, I have some young women at G.Lion Hawaii who are studying for their intro exams. And they're girls that they have grit, they have power, they have determination, and I'm super ready and excited for this new chapter for potential Hawaii sommeliers. It's gonna be fun.
It's happening, for sure.
Happening.
Thanks to people like you. I mean, it's the weirdest thing because I don't ever feel like I'm owed anything, right? But meeting Ariana in the stage that she was, we got introduced to a mutual friend.
He met me when I was pronouncing Mont Rachet as Mont Ratchet. So I was
Mount
ground
Ratchet.
zero, I didn't know anything.
That's
The
kind.
pronunciation comes with it all.
That's kind. But she was willing to work, and what I don't claim any parts of her success. She did that all on herself. But we had this group that would meet together, Micah Suderman and I, and we would help people study for the test. And that's only because of, you teach how you were taught. So we had
Paying
all
it
this
forward.
generosity. You know how expensive it is to blind taste wines and really study for things? We had everything handed to us. So what we did simply was just try to pay it forward for whatever, and we were probably terrible teachers. Ariana will tell you stories once we get into a couple more glasses of how bad I was as a teacher, even though I pride myself on it because I'm not as a teacher.
They were great.
But just seeing, student is not the right word, but just seeing your former people that you studied with take on a mentorship role and like being one of the leaders, it's like one of the leaders in the industry.
It makes you feel old, yeah.
It makes me feel old as shit. It makes
I'm
me feel
already feeling old. I have all these little hosts that I'm hiring, and I'm like, what is this lingo? What is lit? What is fam? I don't know.
It's
And those are
lit
like the
fam.
easy ones. I don't know what they say these days. I feel
Yeah,
old.
there's not a sense of pride. It's a sense of like age.
Growing up with them in the industry, I was always like the youngest one. I was always the
Still
young
is.
female. But now I'm realizing like, hey, there's a whole new generation that I got to get ready for, and I need to start listening to more hip tunes.
Well, the restaurant industry was like this, right? The generations between the restaurant industry, it's quick. Really, it really is. I mean, you have the lifespan of like an NFL running back.
Absolutely.
So the people that stick around and the people who become leaders in our industry, like they're essentially living legends, right?
And Micah is with the Royal Hawaiian now, right?
Yeah,
I love
Micah actually, he's doing it all. He started at the Royal Hawaiian, and now he moved on to Biplex Director, doing Royal as well as Sheraton. And now I believe he's Complex. So he's doing Moana Surfrider, PK, Sheraton, Royal. They're getting the most bang for their buck, that company, because Micah is everywhere doing everything.
On top of owning a restaurant in Kaneohe, Zia's Cafe.
Which I actually had the very awesome pleasure to also work there as well, back during the pandemic. So like I was working at Zia's, and it really helped me to go from fine dining back to Zia's, because I felt like neighborhood bistro, that's as transparent as you can get with a customer, because there's no fuss, there's no frou-frou. It's just you and the guests talking story, telling them why they should drink this wine with their chicken parmesan, you know? So that was a really, really cool opportunity that Micah allowed me to go work with him at Zia's for a little bit with his wife, Sophanie.
Micah Suderman, one of my
love
best
it.
friends. Sorry.
Yeah.
We went off on a love tangent, but yeah.
Your bromance
Leaders in the industry,
will
right?
go for time.
Leaders in the industry.
No, he's awesome. I actually met him, a good friend of mine, Hide.
So Hide, we also know because we used to go to Bread and Butter, which he used to be a
and
part
Micah
of.
used to do, and literally I would always come in and Micah would sit there and he would do the whole pairing, and there would be Hide, and then from there it's like you would go to dinner and Micah's there, or you know, we'd go out and Micah's there.
Micah's
so
just always
He's
there.
everywhere.
he's just in the background, like, are you gonna get a drink? I'll have one.
But it really speaks to like the camaraderie that we have in Hawaii.
Absolutely.
It's like, oh, you're studying here? Sure, you can take a table. You can take a whole table at my busiest time during breakfast and teach a class and stay there for 3 hours and do blind tasting.
Absolutely, there's definitely a camaraderie, and just even Bread and Butter, they had the best servers that they remembered my tea order, and then you'd see Chef Masa just coming behind the kitchen and be like, oh, here's some fresh focaccia bread, and they're just so hospitable. And I think that's the best thing about being in the hospitality industry for both of us. It's really speaking to true aloha, and Chris says this a lot, is that, you know, we're kind of looked over. We're kind of the baby sister of states compared to New York, San Francisco, all these really hoity-toity wine cities. But at the end of the day, if we're all in hospitality, Hawaii should be the best. Yeah. You know, we're the aloha state. We are all about bringing guests in like it's my own home. Like you're gonna, like you're gonna come in and celebrate grandma's birthday. Okay, that's my tutu. Like, let's go take care of her, make sure she has the best Pinot Grigio she's ever had, and make sure she's just feeling at home and comfortable. And I think sometimes that's forgotten.
We rest on our laurels here.
Yeah, and I wanna just make sure that we are pushing forward and not just escaping by. Back in the 90s, Alan Wong's Roy Yamaguchi, the HRC movement was all about
Hawaii regional cuisine.
Hawaii regional cuisine is that, okay, they used to say the best meal that you're ever gonna have in Hawaii is on the flight over, the airplane meal in the 90s. And the HRC movement really was like, we're gonna change that. So it was a band of 12 chefs that got together, and we're gonna perpetuate good Hawaii food. And that's why we see so many amazing things like the Hawaii Food and Wine Festival to this day. So I think that we need a resurgence and a revolution with wine and hospitality and service staff as well. And I think it's coming. I'm telling you, this is the new generation.
Sister, I believe it. I believe it, especially with people like you at the helm. Seriously.
Too nice.
Yeah. Is any last words? Any you want to plug Gramsom or plug your personal accounts? Or
You can follow me at Ariana Tsuchiya on Instagram, but also stay tuned. We will be having my own YouTube channel as well. This is going to be Gramsom. Right now we do Chuck Furia Uncorked, which is meant to be just a talk story about wine, but I'm going to be getting into some real cool tutorials. And for those who are in the industry who want to learn about not just wine, sake, whiskey, beer, and more. We'll see.
Wow.
Awesome.
All right. Well, cheers to that, sister.
Yes.
Crushing
Good
it.
luck.
Thanks so much, Ariana.
Thank you for coming. Be sure to like, subscribe, tell all your friends, and follow us on Instagram, Wine and Podcast. Thank you, Mets, for being here.